soon. Hello, back again with another video on Enumerate All the Things. And today's service is MS-SQL, which is the default or which runs on a port 1433 as a default. MS-SQL is nothing but Microsoft SQL Server you'll commonly find in Windows operating system. It's a database server that works on SQL structured query language. And of course, the default port is 1433. So let's start with the enumeration part, and first tool that we will be focusing on is nothing but nmap. Nmap is again the great lead for all the services. So let's start nmap-p to specify a single port which is 1433-SV and C. I'm adding three different argument altogether. S is for just SV is for service version, S is like a common, and SC is nothing but a default script. Let's go with the flow. I'll add my target IP address, which is 10.0.0. Probably 30, and let's give it a try, or let's just quickly verify it. As the Windows operating system I'm using that randomly changes this IP address for security reason, I might have to look through it couple of times. ipconfig, and yeah, it's 15, so it's changed in like 10 to 15 minutes. 15, and let's go. Let's hit enter. All right, so now the execution of version enumeration, whether it's Microsoft SQL Server 2019 work, as well as SC, which is a default script. For MS SQL, there are a couple default scripts. One is MS SQL NTLM info that displays whatever the target information, and there are a few others, but if there is no response, it will not going to display the result at all. So that's it for nmap. Let's see our next tool. What are the things nmap return? So target OS, domain name if there is any domain configured. The lab is configured or designed for MS SQL and MySQL attacks for one of the video that I have shared already over YouTube, so you can go and check hashtag talks playlist, and yeah, you'll find that SQL injection to shell video, right? So this is a design for the same, and I'll be using, of course, the same. And yeah, that's it for the nmap. We can use -sc, which is pretty much enough to get basic information. You won't really find any critical information except the one Microsoft Server version. This is pretty much latest, not the exact latest, but it is somewhere with no vulnerability. So if you want to verify, go and check with exploit DB or searchploit. That both work similarly, right? So yeah, this is the first tool. We'll move to another tool, and that we will going to use to validate SA user with SA password. So basically, SA is a user for MS SQL that is sysadmin. By default, this SA user is disabled. However, sometimes you'll find this as enabled, and usually it is configured with the same password as SA, like SA as a username, SA as a password, and should be good. So always you should first check this as your default checklist. So SA user with SA password. Let's use our first tool in order to verify this, which is from Impacket, of course, MS SQL client. Should be good. And the argument that allows is pretty much simple. What it requires? It just requires username. Password is optional, domain is optional. However, username is something that is required along with the target name or address. So let's give it a try. MS-SQL client space. If you know the domain name, of course, we know that domain name is something that is displayed here, right? So here we go. Username, as I said, we will be focusing or using that SA as a username along with SA as a password. The domain, SA as a username, SA as a password at the rate target IP address, which is 10.0.0.15. Should be good. Let's hit enter. It failed. No worries. But what we understood here is always check this SA user with SA password. Of course, it is not configured to work with that, but this is something you should give it a check as a first. The second check which I would like to add here is SA user with common password. Common passwords can be anything, right? Whatever you instantly understand. So let's give it a try. So instead using this SA as a password, let's try password exclamation. This could be the one. Of course, when you use that exclamation, you need single apostrophe. The password exclamation, it will fail, of course. Wait, there is an error here. Password exclamation. There we go. It failed. Second, I'll go with like a password at 123. Should be good. It worked. So with the SA user, I use the common password, which is password at 123. It can be anything. It can be welcome at 123. It can be, let's say the domain name is Robencio Ogus, right? And the password can be Ogus at 123. So it can be anything. It just depends on what is your thinking. So always give it a try to use common passwords with the user asset. And if that works, pretty much enough, right? Again, I'm repeating here, this entire sessions or this entire series is focused or strongly focused on tool. And here we have introduced another tool, which is Impacket MS-SQL client. To connect, you need very few argument, which is domain name. If you don't have, you no need to specify that, and just using username, password and target IP address should be good, right? And once you are connected to the SQL, you can execute SQL commands like select at version and of course the semicolon in order to end. And here we go, we have the response back. This is the one. However, this tool from Empacket offers some extra feature, and that is something more focused. And the one is enable XPCMD shell. So let's give it a try. Enable XPCMD shell, hitting enter. It worked. As that SA user is a sysadmin, we have some extra privileges. And that privileges allows us to enable this XPCMD shell. XPCMD shell is a function that allows us to execute OS commands using XPCMD shell. So let's give it a try. XPCMD shell, I'll say who am I, and it worked. It says NT service MS-SQL server. So if it is running through any different user, it should reflect back here. I can add any command. Basically, if I add apostrophe, probably I'll able to add this whoami slash all, or it doesn't require that. Probably it is something. Yeah. So here I'll get all the response from the command, right? So yeah, this is it. I can disable that back, the XPCMD shell, and should be good. Now I won't be able to execute any command on the system because the XPCMD shell is disabled. Let's exit and move to another test case or scenario. So once you are done with SA user with the SA password and SA user with the common password, you can assume that it is not something configured or enabled, right? And you can give it a try to do few other test cases. So one case would be OS user, whatever the OS user probably on that system, or if you have those user list from that Active Directory or from that destination system, it can be local system, it can be Active Directory machine as well, right? So what you can give it a try, you can give it a try to use username as a password and try to connect back, right? So let's just give it a try. And to do that OS authentication, there is an additional argument available within the MS-SQL client, which is nothing but Windows auth. That tells that this is the Windows credential, Windows authentication credential in order to connect to that specific service. So let's give it a try. So in Packet MS-SQL client, I'll go with the user that I'm already aware, let's say, with the same password as a prop. R0B, it is something, right? And the destination IP address 10.00.15, and I'll add that Windows auth. Windows auth is, is what telling that this is the Windows credential and not the MS SQL service credential. So now let's give it a try. And it worked. And this is quite often that you'll find that local user as a password would work on MS SQL server, right? If you have that local user password, for example, this Rob user has configured password as a Rob. If you have this different user, let's say if you have administrator password, you can use that in order to connect to the MS SQL service, right? And once you are connected, enable XP CMD shell in order to enable, and XP underscore CMD shell and your command, whatever it is, right? Should be good. This is another test case. So when you tried SA user with SA password, SA user with a common password, OS user as a password, and the final case would be OS user with common passwords, right? So let's give it a try. It will be the same. I know that it worked with the same password. Let's try password at 123. Right, I'll add the single apostrophe just to get this highlighted. And let's give it a try. Of course, it will fail because it's not configured against the same, right? So yeah, this is something which I would like to introduce here. Impacket MS SQL client. If you have hashes for the Windows operating system user, then what you can do is Impacket MS SQL client offers that hyphen hashes, right? If you have that hash, you can just pass it and should be good. You no need to even crack those hashes. The condition is it should be NTLM hash. That's it. So this is all focused, or this is all planned for MS SQL. When we will be again uh, on the topic of exploitation, that time you will get more understanding against the same. So when we will real time exploit those services with various test scenarios, we will be uh, putting it into the level next. Right now, let's just consider, or let's just keep note that there is a tool named Impacket MS SQL client. It's a script that can allow you to connect to MS SQL service, and few test cases are here on the display probably. The first is nmap. Go with the default script, understand what are the domain name, if there is username disclosed, if possible. Of course, it's very rare. SA user with SA password is something you should give it a try. SA user with a common password, you should give it a try. The next, if you have OS credential, OS user credential, you can provide. You can give it a try OS user as a password and give it a try to connect. OS user with a common password and give it a try to connect. This OS user information is something you should find from other services. Like it can be a blog as well running on HTTP service, and that blog has some username disclosed. This can be possible, right? So possibilities are endless. The only thing here to focus on, there is a tool, Impacket MS-SQL flat. So yeah, that's it. That's all for today. Hope you liked, hope you enjoyed, and learned something new. If you do, hit like and comment how you feel. And if you need something additional, you can just write it below. That is it. That is all planned for MS SQL. See you next time.